from a binary context is that men, particularly when we look at race and other things, have a level of power that women do not.
Absolutely.
And as trans folks who, particularly AMAB people who are navigating femininity in this world, what we experience is we're able to relate and correlate with the forms of abuse that women experience. Now you tackle the intersections of Blackness, migrant, poor, all those other lists of intersections, there is more context that we not only is it empathy, but it's what it calls us to fire to advocate.
Yeah.
And if you see in historical context, a lot of trans folks are at the forefront of many oppressive bills. When the folks who could be there, should be there, are not able to be there because they have been indoctrinated to survive and to be in a system of working.
Very true.
But we clock that T quickly. And so what we do when we don't have jobs, when jobs are being moved from us, housing is root, we turn our pain into purpose.
Yes.
Us protesting and being on the street for folks and for issues was because we had nothing else to lose. There is something sacred about that journey because when we go into that journey, we experience isolation, we experience grief, we experience shut-in, and then we experience blossom. And then we have to now interpret what the world perceives us and how we want the world to see us, and then the between safety and security. And so a lot of trans folks are still in the place of survival by force, not by decision, by force, because there are intentional policies that exist that does not allow us to thrive in the ecosystem in which it is currently existing.
Correct.
From housing, school, churches, food, and the list goes on.
You obviously have a calling on your life.
Thank you.
Now you're being called into theology, into a spiritual space. What is, first of all, I want to see more of us in this space. Talk about your decision to take this on, and also the people that may have come before you that have been in the space but just haven't been recognized.
I will always start with truth first. Truth is that I still grapple with it. Truth is that I still struggle with it because I understand it has been a tool of the oppressors.
Yeah.
Sit with that. And the other side, because two things could exist, is that it is a part of my ancestral veneration. My grandma and my grandma and them and my grandma and them had used that tool of their own oppression to create something beautiful. They made lemonade. They used the prayers to get them through. They used the Bible studies to help them. They used the God talk in their own ways before they knew that there was a conversation about womanist theology, before they knew there was a conversation about liberation theology that we now have, before they even knew there was Black theology.
Yeah, yeah.
They were practicing with the tools that they had gotten that was in forms of oppression that they did not see. They used it as a form of hope. And so the calling for me was when I was at a water in Hawaii in 2020, when there was an uprising, and I said, I'm going to choose rest radically because I may not live. And I also knew that I was coming up on 30. And there's a significant number about the 30, right? Because there has been data that says trans folks don't make it to 30. And so I chose radically to have a hard reset. And while I sat at the water, I kept hearing, it's okay to go to school for your MDiv. It's okay. That is something you love, the Spirit of God. You love God talk. You love to talk about how God is in the divine of trans women. I met God through a Black trans woman when I started school. I found myself.
Wow.
I found myself between glitter, grief, and God.
Yes.
In the room where lashes were being applied in the before she hit the stage for ballroom, I saw God. I saw that she prayed before she hit the stage. We were never removed from God in whatever conversation, whether Buddhism, whether Judaism, whether Hinduism, every culture.
Yes.
and you find trans folks and you sat down with them, you will see that they were not removed from God. They were removed from the people that used God to harm them. A lot of people like to say that Cecilia Gentili was an atheist. When you look at her play, it wasn't that she didn't think that God exists. She was exhausted from how people use God to condemn her.
Absolutely.
That's not a narrative that's just to Cecilia. That is a narrative for the Black trans women. That is a narrative for the shaman. That is a narrative for the seers. That is a narrative for the women that are called witches. That is a narrative that theology has been used in the wrong hands for the sake of power to oppress her. So I was called as a way to use if you want to say the tool of oppressor, to interrogate their text.
Ooh, okay, yes.
The same way that you get to interpret the text and use the text to condemn folks, why can't I use the text to heal folks?
Ooh, absolutely.
If God said it,
Right.
I can interrogate you to say that you misunderstood and you misinterpreted. And you can't tell me that the practice of my people, indigenously or African, is also going to be condemned.
Right.
So if I want to pull a little bit of Afa or Ifa, or I want to bring a little bit of the Orishas, you're not going to tell me to condemn me when I know the historical context of how theology has existed to harm women, to harm the marginalized, to keep the poor, to keep genocide, ethnic cleansing. The Bible is a historical context. All of these religious, spiritual books have history context.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And a lot of that is for the sake of power. And so my job is to allow myself to use the divine of people who have been exiled, particularly from Black trans femme perspective, not removing a lot of the Black trans men who are been doing. I think about Reverend Eunice Coleman. I think about Reverend Lewis Mitchell. I think about Reverend Amundeo. And right now, when we think about how many Black trans reverend priests exist that are glorified and honored under God, it is hard to see their platform, but we know Valerie Spencer.
Right.
We know Camarion. We know Bobby Hunter, who passed away, if I'm saying their name right, and so much different more. And so my goal is to use Black Femme Queen theology as an archive mixed with this journey of road where we actually have the first trans pastor in Uganda by the name of Angie as of last year.
Wow.
In the same context where a bill was created against homosexuals and trans people, right? I'm using the language that they use.
Absolutely.
Out of pain, how I started this interview, out of pain and casualty, I became. And I see trans people doing that, and that is a form of ministry.
So, thank you.
Sorry, that was
No. Let me just tell you, I want to say thank you for picking up that ministry, because so many, I know it. I can see when there's broken spirits and people, just meaning like they haven't been able to tap back into something that affirms.
Finding the language to even identify and name it.
And to identify and name it.
Yeah.
We know that saying, that's not my ministry. This is your ministry.
It is.
It is so clear. We already talking on the side about how I can uplift and amplify that ministry, because I definitely want to do that. But I just want to say thank you so much for taking that ministry. For me, Pride is all about celebrating, for me, who I am so proud of. What I am so proud of in our community, because there's a lot going on that we shouldn't be proud of. Trying to separate.
There's no pride in genocide.
There's no pride in genocide. Right. Absolutely.
The choice of joy is the resistance, and we have been doing that.
Yes.
The choice, the act, the practice of joy, the practice of love, intimacy. Into me, I see you. Into me, I see you.
Yes.
That practice, that act is the form of resistance and is the healing modality. It is the pathway for our becoming. And what my prayer and my hope is that in our trauma, in our pain, that we will get to unravel it in a way that we don't have to use the glitter to look good, to show up in spaces to look good, to say, I am hurting and I've been using glitter to cover it up.
Yes.
Glitter, grief, and God.
Listen, from your lips to God's ears, those prayers will be answered.